Wednesday, April the 24th. The lake level is 914 and a half. Water temperature, it's amazing what a few days of nice weather and sunshine will do, but it's starting out about 60, and it depends where you're at on the lake. You'll find some 68-degree water and some of the stained water. Before I get into the fishing report, just a little update. I think I told you last week or the week before, I installed my new Pro Guide batteries, battery charger, and it's been working awesome. I've had several other different chargers, and this one, I get an equal charge to all my trolling motor batteries. So they've come out with a new line of chargers. If you guys are running, any of you are running like, two chargers, because like myself, I'm running 5 batteries, or if you're running like a single 36 volt trolling motor and a 12 volt for your crank, they've got several different chargers that'll charge just about every configuration of batteries that you have, and they're really reasonable price. So if you get a chance, you need to check them out at Pro Guide Batteries. Any of the dealers around that sell the batteries will also sell the chargers, so check them out. But the last few days, fishing's been really good. I've kind of been all over the lake, so as far as the spawn, we got a full moon, I think it was last night. And, there was fish on the beds a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and I fished Kimbling City area today, and I'm still seeing a lot of the old beds, but for as warm as the water has got the last few days, I'm not seeing a ton of new fish up there cruising the bank. Now, I was up in the Shell Knob area, and it seems like from Campbell Point on up the White and up into Kings, not every bank, but you can go into a lot of these steeper banks, where the fish are spawning. You'll see several fish cruising. You'll see new fish making beds, and you'll also see fry, bass fry. I think the fish are a lot further ahead up there. And even around this Kimbling area, where I think some of the fish have spawned, I'm seeing very little fry. So it kind of makes me believe that we've still got a bunch more fish that's going to come in and spawn. But the fish have finally started to set up on a lot of these gravel points. The smallmouth it has really been a ball the last few days. They have really moved up and catching some really good quality smallmouth. And we're catching them on, a lot of gravel areas, right out where they're spawning, and some of them are still moving into spawn, so they're just outside the spawning areas. But we've been catching them on Ned rigs, a little tiny finesse jig like Missiles bait, Iconelli miniature football jig, Pee-wee football jig, 1/8 ounce, 3/16 ounce Ned rigs, and also tubes. Tube has been working really well for me. And a lot of times the way I rig the tube up, you can get special heads where you can Texas rig the tube, but it can be a little bit of a pain the way I rig them. I just take a 1/4 ounce ball head, and I've got a 2/0 Gamakatsu hook. We pour these ourselves, but you can find these in the tackle stores. And the reason I like to use a 2/0, I don't want too big of a hook for the smallmouth, and also I feel like it gets me hung up a little bit less. Now, I'm not rigging it weedless, so I will get hung up some, but most of the time fishing for them smallmouth, you're basically just fishing rocks. But I just slide the little ball head up in there and then poke a little hole where I'm going to tie it. Now, if you got to change baits, if your bait gets tore up, you got to cut the bait off to put a new tube on. But a lot of times that can be a good thing, because if you've caught several fish on it, like where I'm using Philly light line, you probably need to, cut it off and retie anyways. A lot of them same areas, like today it was dead slick. There wasn't very much swim bait action for us. Most of the fish were on the bottom, but the days that the wind's blowing, you can see some bait up suspended and some fish. Still been catching them on a swim bait, and that's going to continue for months. But I've been using either 3/16 or 1/4 ounce head. I've been throwing a lot of different swim baits. You can use a Kitech, the Strike King. I've been using here lately a lot of the Missiles. It's called a Shockwave. It's a 3.5. It's been working real well on a 3/16 or 1/4 ounce head. 6 or 8 pound line. Most of the time I'm throwing mine like on 12 pound braided line with an 8-pound fluorocarbon leader. Now, if you get in the spawning pockets and up on the bank, you can, throw the little Ned rig. You can throw, wacky rigs. Another way you can catch them up there. And even these smallmouth out on the flats. For years we used to just, you can use a miniature Carolina rig. For years we used to catch them on just a, French fry and a fish doctor. Put like a number 2 split shot up about a foot or so from the hook, 2-aught hook, and you can drag it. Now, as far as dragging the bottom, the moss is pretty well getting cleaned up in most of the lake. But another way to catch them fish that you think are bedding, instead of throwing a Ned rig as well, especially if you get into any moss, you can rig it up on a drop shot. And I've got a 4-inch mini missiles worm on here. It's a PBJ. Now you can either wacky style it or just nose hook it. And it's really good, especially if there's some moss, but it's just another way instead of throwing a Ned rig. Myself, I kind of like the Ned rig because if I do get this hung up and have to break it off, the Ned rig's a lot quicker for me to rig up than the drop shot. But it just gives you another alternative, and especially if you like to stay in contact with the bottom. Some people, they're not feeling good if their bait's not bouncing off the bottom. I use pretty light weights all the time. So a lot of times I'm not feeling my bait on the bottom, but I'm staying in real close contact with my line. I think the fish hold on a little better that way. A lot of times they'll just pick the bait up and you got to keep an eye on your line right there where it enters the water. You'll just kind of see it swimming off, or you'll have a little bit of pressure. But like I say, some people like the fact that their bait's bouncing off the bottom so they can tell the difference between the bottom and the bite. I kind of like to do it the old finesse way, where I don't feel hardly anything that way. When I do feel something, I'm pretty confident it's a fish. In the tube, the same way, I'm rigging it up on 12-pound Sun Plasma braided line with the 8-pound FC Sniper leader. Now, as far as the watercolor in the lake, Kimberling area is not as clear as what it normally is. It's probably got 3-4 feet of visibility. Down by the dam is probably the clearest. It seems like Ants Creek to about point 12 has got a real kind of a turn, nasty kind of a turnover color. And even up there where that water's that color, I fished up there, I think Sunday. And, we still struggled to get bites in that off-colored water, even though it was a little bit warmer. But I've got reports that some of the guys have been catching them on spinnerbaits and square bills up there. It seems like if you want to target, largemouth for these spawning fish, fishing with the Ned rig and the drop shot and the, little tiny miniature jigs, the 45-degree banks, like off of little bluff cuts or just the steeper banks that got the ledges, you got a better chance to catch largemouth. I'm not saying you won't catch a Kentucky or a smallmouth in there, but I think it's just higher percentage chance if you're trying to maybe look for a bigger fish or to key on largemouth. A lot of the smallmouths in Kentuckies, for me anyways, right now are on flat or gravel banks. I think there's still a crankbait bite. Some days the wind's blowing like heck, they'll still bite that rock crawler, especially where, I might be wrong, but I think there's still a lot of fish left to move up, and there's still a jerkbait bite. Some of them fish that are waiting to come up. And even when them fish, get done spawning, they're going to back out to them trees. That jerkbait bite, a lot of times they don't stop biting it. I think a lot of us just stop throwing it because they go right back out and suspend in them same trees and points that, they have been for the last month or so. The only difference is usually when it warms up a little bit more, and after the fish are done spawning, you can usually catch them on topwater. Now, as far as the topwater bite, I've had a little bit of topwater bite up in the White River, and I've also had a better fluke bite up there, and that's the same area where I said I've seen a lot of fish cruising and a lot more beds up in that area. I think if we see that down on the rest of the lake, the fluke bite and stuff will also get better. So, till next week, good luck, good fishing.